Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are tackling something huge, one of the greatest, most enduring mysteries on the planet, the Nazca Lines in Peru.
And if you've ever seen pictures of them, you know what we mean.
Oh, absolutely. These breathtaking, just enormous drawings that scrawl across the desert floor. You see them, and the scale it defies belief.
It really does. It's the visual shock of seeing something that looks like it was designed with a satellite view,
Right.
but it was created by a culture that flourished thousands of years ago, a culture with no access to any kind of aerial perspective.
So we're talking about geoglyphs, right? These gigantic depictions of animals, plants, and these incredibly precise geometric shapes.
Exactly, and some are so large. I mean, you literally cannot see what they are unless you are high up in the air.
And that right there is the paradox that really grounds our deep dive today.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Nazca culture thriving on the Pampa of Peru.
Yeah.
Between what, about 100 BC and 600 AD.
Roughly, yes.
And they're creating these magnificent designs, some stretching it to 200 meters long.
Which, to give you an idea, is longer than the Statue of Liberty is tall. It's immense.
And yet no planes, no, observation towers high enough to see the full shape.
Exactly. That level of precision, that engineering, all executed from the ground. It's the central enigma in all the research material. How could they create something so flawless with an accuracy that, frankly, seems to imply some kind of forgotten mastery of geometry?
Or even something like modern GPS surveying. It's that accurate.
It is.
So our goal today is to give you the shortcut to understanding this whole puzzle. We're going to distill all the source material and the scale, the baffling construction methods, the theories about their purpose, and finally, the secret to their incredible longevity.
And believe us, it goes way deeper than just saying they look like ancient runway markings.
Way deeper.
Yeah.
So let's start with that scale you mentioned and what researchers call the sightline problem.
Right, because when we say scale, we aren't just talking about a couple of big drawings. We're talking about something like 800 straight lines, 300 geometric figures, and 70 massive animal and plant designs.
All covering an area of nearly 500 square kilometers.
It's a landscape-sized canvas. It's just staggering.
And you look at, say, the famous hummingbird, which is almost 100 meters across.
Or some lines that are the length of 2 football fields.
And the people creating this were using simple ropes, stakes, basically their bare hands.
They were. And this is where the contradiction, the sightline problem, becomes so acute. They were on the ground.
Just on the ground.
Probably organized into teams working on different sections. They could never step back and admire their giant monkey or their perfect trapezoid.
So if you're standing there, how much of the line can you actually see?
Maybe 15 to 20 meters max. Then the curve of the earth or just, slight changes in the ground level would obscure the view.
So the whole creation process must have been an exercise in just hyper-precise surveying.
An act of faith, almost. They had to trust the plan, trust the math. They were drawing figures they personally could never see in their entirety.
Which is just wild to think about.
That lack of final visual confirmation is key. It forces researchers to say, okay, these weren't just spontaneous doodles.
No, not at all.
They had to be meticulously planned, probably drawn first on small models and then scaled up onto the desert floor. And that scaling process is the first huge engineering mystery.
Which flows perfectly into the engineering conundrum, the how. Let's move past the shapes for a second and just focus on the lines.
The straight lines.
Because the source material just hammers this one point home again and again. The phenomenal precision.
Yes. We're talking about lines without any curve, any deviation, often stretching across ravines over uneven ground.
This is where it gets really mind-bending. Forget the 200-meter figures for a moment.
The most baffling part, really, is that some of these lines and trapezoids extend for tens of kilometers.
Tens of kilometers.
In one case, a single line runs for nearly 20 kilometers on one straight path, without a single discernible error.
20 kilometers. I mean, that's a Herculean effort. Modern crews use GPS, lasers, all kinds of advanced tech for that.
They do.
So what are the proposals? How did the Nazca people manage it?
The leading scientific hypothesis is that they used a sort of vast interconnected surveying network.
Okay, let's unpack that. What does a surveying network actually mean in this context?
Sure. So researchers suggest a couple of methods. First, they'd establish a baseline, maybe by aligning 2 high points on the plane.
Points they could see from the ground locally.
Exactly. Then, using really simple tools, stakes, ropes, maybe water levels to keep things flat, they would just extrapolate the line from there.
Okay.
The second idea, which is fascinating, is that they used simple sighting poles.
So kind of like you stand at stake A, you look at stake B, and you have someone move stake C until it's perfectly in line.
Precisely. You just leapfrog the stakes down the line, maintaining that straightness for kilometer after kilometer.
And what about starting the line, getting that initial direction?
That's where astronomy might come in. Some researchers think they used astronomical alignments. So if a line was set to, say, align with a specific star rising on a specific day,
Then you have a perfect, unchangeable reference point in the sky to start with.
an external perfect reference.
But here's the challenge to that, and the sources raise this point themselves. Doesn't that just kick the problem down the road?
How so?
Well, if you rely on a network of marker points, how did you make sure the setup of that network across 20 kilometers was perfect in the first place?
Ah, yes. You have articulated the core paradox perfectly.
Right.
Even with the surveying hypothesis, the high accuracy they achieved is still deeply, deeply baffling. It suggests that the Nazca either have a level of geometric mastery, a kind of, practical trigonometry that we just haven't credited them with, or they just possessed a degree of human meticulousness, of patience that is almost impossible for us to imagine in a massive public works project.
An unparalleled dedication to just maintaining a single direction across rough terrain without any deviation, all for a symbolic purpose. It's just astonishing.
It really is. It forces us to wonder if we're missing some fundamental principle they had mastered. They were removing the dark surface rocks, exposing the lighter soil, and in doing so, building this monumental testament to pure applied geometry.
Which brings us perfectly to the big question, the why. The how is complex, but the why is, well, it's almost entirely mysterious.
It is. These were clearly not just, casual desert doodles. They seem to hold some crucial function for their society.
So what are the leading theories?
When you distill the research, you basically find three primary mainstream explanations. And it's important to say they aren't mutually exclusive. The lines could have served all three functions.
Okay, lay them out for us.
Number one, ritual paths. This theory suggests the straight lines were ceremonial routes, walkways for religious rituals.
And is there evidence for that?
There is. Some geoglyphs show signs of light but extensive foot traffic. The surface is slightly worn down, suggesting people walked these lines over and over.
Like a sacred pilgrimage route? That makes a lot of sense.
It does. Okay, number two. A giant calendar, or some call it a focus for a water cult.
A water cult?
Well, the Nazca region is incredibly dry. Water was everything. So this theory suggests key lines align with solstices, equinoxes, important astronomical events.
So they could predict the timing of the rains and the seasons. It connects the sky to their most basic survival need.
That's the idea, connecting celestial timekeeping to the earthly need for water.
Okay. And the third theory?
The third is that they were symbols or messages for the sky gods. This is probably the most famous one.
Because if you can't see them from the ground...
Then the audience must be in the sky.
Exactly. The giant animal figures, the spider, the whale, are often linked to Nazca deities, fertility, and water. So the lines could have been huge offerings or signals to the heavens. Now, this third theory, symbols for the sky, this is what feeds directly into all the popular cultural ideas, right?
It's the doorway.
Because they look so perfectly designed for an aerial view, people have attributed them to, advanced civilizations or even extraterrestrial visitor.
Oh, absolutely. Theories like those from Erich von Däniken have captured the public imagination for decades. It's an understandable reaction.
If we can't explain it, an outside force must have done it.
Right. But it's vital to note that mainstream archaeology, it overwhelmingly rejects those hypotheses.
And why is that? What's the physical evidence?
Well, they've found small-scale models, simple tools, even pottery shards left by the workers. Everything points definitively to the Nazca people themselves.
So the complexity isn't evidence of aliens, it's evidence of extraordinary human ingenuity.
Precisely. The visual spectacle feeds the speculation, but the physical evidence on the ground confirms the Nazca built them. The genius is all theirs.
Let's shift to the final piece of the puzzle then, their longevity. How have these drawings out in an exposed desert survived for thousands of years?
The secret is a rare, almost unique microclimate on the Pampa de Nazca.
A microclimate.
Two main factors are working together. First, the region is extremely dry. It gets almost no rain. We're talking less than a millimeter a year in some cases.
So there's no water erosion to wash them away.
Oh!
But what about wind? Deserts are windy.
That's where the second, even more critical factor comes in. The ground is covered by this layer of dark, reddish-brown stones. It's often called desert varnish.
Go.
Below that, the soil is much lighter. So when the Nazca builders removed that dark top layer, they created this incredible contrast.
And that stops the wind.
Well, what stops the wind from erasing them is that the Nazca Plain actually has very low wind speeds near the surface. And more importantly, that layer of dark rocks acts as a thermal buffer.
Thermal buffer, how?
The dark stones absorb heat during the day, and they create this cushion of warm air just above the ground. And that cushion reduces air movement, preventing the strong winds that would normally kick up sand and erase the lines.
Wow. So it's like a natural self-preserving system.
It's almost as if nature collaborated with the Nazca to create a perfect preservation chamber.
That's incredible. But, and this is a big but, that explains why they survive.
Right. It explains the preservation.
It doesn't explain the perfection. The fact that those 20-kilometer lines are still perfectly straight after millennia just confirms the absolute precision of the original builders.
And the advanced geometric tools, whether they were physical tools or intellectual ones, that they must have used.
It's a profound achievement. A whole network of communication or function that was inaccessible to its own creators, but survived perfectly.
It is. And when you synthesize all the sources, the scale, the precision, the purpose, the durability, the consensus among researchers is that the Nazca Lines are a fundamental civilizational mystery, one that we really haven't completely uncovered yet.
An open-ended question.
A huge one about the true capabilities of the pre-Columbian world.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider. If these ancient people, using just stakes and ropes, could achieve engineering feats like a perfectly straight line for 20 kilometers.
A task that's still difficult even today.
Exactly. Then what intrinsic knowledge, what forgotten geometrical principles did they master that we, with all our digital and satellite technology, might have overlooked?
Or maybe have just forgotten how to teach ourselves. That ability to project absolute straightness just through human intelligence and patience.
The depth of that knowledge is still out there, etched into the desert floor.
The puzzle is still waiting for its final solution.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time.